Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, как дела? Я хочу, что все идет очень хорошо с вами сегодня и завтра. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. J. Slater case. And we turn back to Lorree. Where did we get to with Lorree? We got to point 6, bullet point 6 that she'd made on reasons for the needle to be swinging towards accident, 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 rather than foul play, foul play, foul play. And as I've tried to do as I go through each bullet point is to stress how when you go beneath the surface, this is something that Lorree doesn't like to do. Oh, she has a life to lead. She has all kinds of things to do that prevent her from going into detail on these very important matters. So we're always reduced to just bullet points. Bullet points, that's it. No deeper thought is needed for Lorraine Reeves to conclude must be an accident. I would suggest, Lorree, that you do actually dig deeper, that you do spend more time on these bullet points and you do develop some ideas. And if you do, I think you'll find your bullet points are a load of BS. But that's just my suggestion. Spend more time on this, dig deeper, think rationally, and you'll find everything you say points towards foul play. I've got 2 more points today as we go through it step by step. I'm going to skip Laurie's point 7 because it doesn't seem to be anything but waffle. I might go back to it. But for today, I want to go to point 8. Her bullet point 8, is about the UK inquest findings. Actually, before I do that, let me just have a quick word on Lorree saying that these are just bullet points. What were her exact words? These are just bullet points I reeled off the top of my head. So I think here we see Lorree trying to make an excuse for herself, saying, well, just off the top of my head, these are bullet points that indicate this is an accident. I mean, I don't really have to go into any detail, do I? Yes, you do, Lorree. And my point is, if these are the bullet points that you just reeled off the top of your head and they indicate to you an accident, why haven't you gone into more detail? You see, this is now entering year 3. Why is it into year 3, Lorree, when you're asked, just tell us why you're sure this is an accident, you have to reel off the top of your head a few bullet points. You see, from our side, Lorree, year 3 now, in this case, we would all say that having spent a lot of time, 2 full years, of thought, reflection, verification, debate, discussion, that we don't need bullet points. We can all, on our side, spend hours telling you where we see the red flags and the needle pointing towards foul play. Quite, Lorree, why into year 3 you need to drag something off the top of your head and make it bullet points, I don't know. It makes me think, Lorree, you haven't really thought about this. Or you don't have the knowledge to do anything but bullet points. But it does seem, from someone that's been in education quite a while, Lorree, that the kid that turns up to class and say, oh, well, I was just, giving it a quick thought. These are just my bullet points. It's often, Lorree, an excuse for someone that can't go beyond the bullet points and the off the top of my head. This is where, Lorree, I give you your homework back and I say, rather than bullet points and rather than just thoughts off the top of your head, pick 1 or 2 of these and go into as much detail as you can to explain why this points to an accident, as much detail as you usually do waffling on about bloody nonsense in your pages and pages of waffle. Just focus on the matter in hand. The matter in hand is, why are you convinced this is an accident? You are convinced this J. Slater case, the J. Slater death, is an accident because of a lot more than bullet points, I would think. But do you think, have you thought, or is your whole J. Slater thought process only bullet points? That's the challenge, Lorree. That is the challenge. Please go deeper than bullet points. Because if you're convinced it's an accident, you must be convinced a lot more beyond bullet points. But anyway, let's get to your point 8. Point 8 that moved the needle towards accident for you was the UK inquest findings. Well, UK inquest findings. There were a lot of findings in that inquest. So, yeah, I understand why this one is a bullet point, because you don't have the time, energy, will, or capacity to actually go into the whole slate of UK inquest findings that came about. So what I've done is I've picked just four of the UK inquest findings that for me and for others, Lorree, point towards foul play, foul play, foul play. And what I invite you to do is to contradict me, take my 4 bullet points and say, no, Duncan, you got it wrong. The UK inquest findings that you mentioned all indicate an accident. Here's UK inquest finding number 1. When the 5 key witnesses that had spent those last hours of Jay's life with Jay were invited, summoned to the inquest, Lorree, out of the 5, a total of 0 showed up. Now, those of us that have worked a little bit in this kind of scenario will tell you, Lorree, that is, for an accidental death, unheard of. Absolutely unheard of, especially when we're talking about the best friend, the best friends of the deceased, and the 2 gentlemen that spent the last hours of his life with him in a car under their roof. I don't think, Lorree, if you do a little bit of research, you can find another accidental death where the 5 people that spent their final hours with the victim all refuse, and they did refuse to show up. They chose not to. Not only that, they chose to disappear. As the coroner himself said, they denied who they were, which basically means, Lorree, they didn't respond to emails. They stopped answering their phone. They did all in their power to avoid coming to give any witness statement at the inquest of their dear friend. That, Lorree, to sane people points towards not an accident, but something criminal or foul play is going on here. But I'm amazed that that UK inquest finding that none of the witnesses could be bothered to be there. I'm amazed, Lorree, that points to accident to you. So again, think beyond the bullet point and try to explain why 0 out of 5 good friend, close associates of Jay all refuse to show up, and explain why that indicates an accident. Point number 2. Once again, I've got to repeat it. I can't rule out a push. In the UK inquest findings, when we have the pathologist saying, I can't rule out a push is criminal. It's foul play. The pathologist says, I can't rule out foul play. That was one of the UK inquest findings. Pathologist stated, I can't rule out foul play. But that pushed the needle towards accident for you, did it? I think to everyone else on this planet, as soon as Dickie Shepherd said that, the needle was going, oh my God, there's foul play. There's a hint of foul play. That includes foul play. If the pathologist himself is saying, could be foul play, that needle goes towards, guess what? Foul play, not accident. I would say point number 3 about the UK inquest findings. The UK inquest findings discovered unbelievably contradictory statements that again moved the needle towards foul play. Contradictory statements, Lorree, that came and were brought to the attention of the boy's father himself. We're not just talking about someone in the courtroom saying, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. We're not talking about a reporter or two saying, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. We're talking about the boy's father said, this doesn't sound right. The boy's father, Warren Slater, had received his son's clothing back from apparently the day he went missing and died. Yeah? The t-shirt, I guess the shorts, though we didn't see those in any documentary, and the shoes. The father received those, Lorree. And yet, in the inquest findings that you're talking about, one of the witness statements said that Jay came out of that Airbnb wearing jeans. And at that moment, it was reported by the press that Warren Slater objected and said, that doesn't sound right. It was a UK inquest finding that we have contradictory statements, contradictory happenings here. Warren was not given back a pair of jeans. But the witness statement said the boy came out of the Airbnb wearing jeans. Now, that is a UK inquest finding. You can't deny it. That happened. So again, Lorree, for most of us, that's a red flag. It's like, hang on, what's going on here? These are not just contradictory statements of emotion or feeling or perception. They're solid core facts. A fact. Warren Slater was handed back by the authorities the clothes Jay wore on that day. It is a fact that in that UK inquest finding, a witness statement mentioned jeans. That moves the needle towards foul play. It doesn't move the needle towards accident. I could give you a list of 10, 20, 30, as many as you need, but I'm keen from you, Lorree, to pick out one or two of the things I've picked out and tell me where I'm wrong. Or pick out findings of your own, dig beneath the surface and explain exactly why the needle moves towards accident from what you heard and what was an inquest finding. And finally, I'd point to Katie Davies of The Sun. Katie Davies is no friend of mine, no friend of the foul play group. She's out there saying, oh, these armchair sleuths, what problems have they caused? But even Katie Davies of The Sun reported that the UK inquest was an absolute farce. A farce of an inquest were her words. So the UK inquest findings included a reporter from a national newspaper describing it as a farce. That's one of the findings. The press reviewed it and said it's a farce. This again points to more towards foul play than an accident. If the whole UK coroner's court findings is described by a neutral reporter as a farce, you can't say that points towards, well, it must have been an accident. A farce indicates it's a nonsense. So if the verdict comes out accident and the press are saying this is a nonsense finding or a nonsense court, how can you say that accident makes sense? Let's move on to point 9. Point 9 is the toxicology results. Lorree says the toxicology results, you're gonna find this more than a head scratcher, folks. Lorree says the toxicology results, they point towards an accidental death. So that cocktail, that narco cocktail of substances floating around Jay's system, according to Lorree, that points to accident, pure accident. Absolutely pure accident. No criminality involved whatsoever. When a guy full of, what was it, MDMA, cocaine, ketamine, and all the rest of it. Yeah, when that body's found, that points to purely accidental. Now, I don't have the data in front of me. I don't need to have the data in front of me. I think most sane people will understand this. When you have a toxicology report like Jay's, and a death in very unusual circumstances, wandering up a road, wandering off the road, wandering down a ravine, getting up high on an edge and then falling off. When you have a death like that, it is the toxicology results that Jay had that indicate this isn't just a story of a lad that gets lost, wanders off and dies. There's more to it than that. I've already gone through this, but I'll say it one more time. The red flags are the time of day or night. Yeah. When these kind of crimes happen involving ex-con narco dealers, middle of the night, remote location, body full of God knows what substances floating around, believe it or not, most of the time, the investigation finds out there's foul play involved. There's criminality involved. Most of the times in these kind of cases, it doesn't come out that everything connected with this death was pure accident. It is the rarest discovery that a guy like Jay with his toxicology report went through that whole evening and not one single criminal act took place. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable that Lorree actually takes the toxicology results and says, oh, that indicates pure accident to me. Yeah, pure accident. I don't know, Lorree. Are you the type of person that when there's a car accident and the driver was found to have a very, very high blood alcohol level in his bloodstream, Do you assume that that accident was a pure accident? It's just a coincidence that the alcohol in the guy's blood was there and the car crashed? Or is it a red flag? Is it a red flag that maybe some kind of law was broken? Oh, I don't know, like the law that says you mustn't drive over a certain blood alcohol level. Or the law that says a barman that bar lady that willfully sells a client more and more and more alcohol on an evening, knowing that they're already intoxicated. In most countries, that is against the law. A law has been broken. There is foul play. There is criminality involved. There are 101 reasons why people can die an unusual death. But I can assure you, in the case of Jay Slater, there are so many indicators that foul play and criminality is in the background that for someone like Lorree to say, well, I saw the toxicology report and that for me was accident, accident, accident. It's a nonsense. And this is why bullet points don't do it, Lorree. You've got to do your homework. You've got to sift through all this and explain why having thought, not just bullet points and off the top of your head, actually reflecting for a long time and doing your research, how you then can, in more than one word, say why you're sure this must have been an accident. You're being grilled here, Lorree, because you haven't done your homework. And instead of making excuses, well, I have a life to lead, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Okay, then if you've got a life to lead, just throw your hands up and say, I don't know anything about the case. I really don't know if it's an accident or not. But you can't say, well, I haven't got the time to look into it. These are just this is off the top of my head. Oh, but I'm sure it was an accident. Those two don't go together. If you're sure, tell us in detail why you are sure. I'm telling you in detail why I'm pretty sure. Criminality and foul play is in the background. If you're equally sure it was an accident, you've got to go into the same depth. You can't just brush it aside and say, well, it must be an accident because off the top of my head, I think it was an accident. Doesn't work like that. Now, in a separate post from Lorree, she said something very interesting because I raised the point that, to me, Jay Slater being found with no cash at all, not €1 cent, not one, euro banknote, no cash at all, and no bank card, that to me is an indicator something unusual and quite possibly foul play and criminality is involved. Usually, I said, when a body is found, there's no cash and no means of payment on them. It's a red flag. I mean, stating the obvious, it's often what a thief does, They take all the valuable possessions, the cash, effectively, or the card, because the card can be used. And then when you find the body with nothing like that on them, it's like, hello, so who's took those things? It's just what usually happens. Now, Lorree's argument is the other way around. Oh, Lorree says, no, there are plenty of people that go out with any cash or without a card. I don't know, Lorree. I don't know. Lorree says, I never take cash out. Lorree, that might be your way of living in dear old Hampstead, or when you were back in Tilbury, or when you were studying at Portsmouth Tech, Poly, when you were at Portsmouth Poly, yeah? Maybe. And maybe today you wander around Hampstead and you got no cash, ain't got no cash on you. Maybe that's the case, Lorree. Yeah, maybe. But we're not talking about Hampstead, we're not talking about Tilbury, we're not talking about your little bubble of the world, are we, Lorree? We're talking about Tenerife, España. We're talking about abroad. We're talking about a kid first time abroad. And this 19-year-old first time abroad in Tenerife has no bloody idea at all where he's going to be able to use his one and only payment system, the Google Wallet or the Apple Pay, whatever it is, Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, that system where the person uses a phone. He's not going to know that method of payment. And this is assuming that Jay used that method of payment regularly all the time. He's not going to know how often he's going to be able to use that method of payment. So what I recommend to you, Lorree, when you step outside your Hampstead bubble, lovey, I recommend you do take some cash. It's a very good backup for when the phone ain't working or the vendor's system is down And I would take your card as well. I would take all methods of payment possible because you never know. Especially when you go abroad. Especially when you go abroad, Lorree, to a place you don't know for the first time. If you're going to be doing that just with your card or just with your phone, it's not a good idea. Always have all methods of payment available to you. Now, Lorree, forever stuck in her Amstead bubble, says restaurants are making you pay by phone. Well, that might be the case in the UK. Restaurants are making you pay by phone. We're not talking about Amstead. We're talking about Spain. I can tell you, in Spain, there may be one or two places popping up these days where restaurants compel you to pay by phone. I've not run across one. What I've seen is a lot of people still pay by cash. A lot of people present their card. And I have seen people pay by phone. But whenever you actually leave the country, Lorraine, and go to somewhere else, please take all methods of payment with you because in many, many places, that phone payment ain't gonna work. It might, but only a fool would assume that it is going to work and that it's the only form of payment acceptable. Wise up, Lorree, and start learning the truth about the world. There is a world beyond Amstead and Tilbury, and there are many restaurants that take all forms of payment. You say young people just go around and tap their phones. Yes, I've seen that. Often young people just go around and tap their phones. That's true. Doesn't mean that those same young people don't have any cash on them, don't have any cards on them, don't have any friends with cash or cards on them. But here's the point where I think we have a problem. Lorree says we know Jay was making payments with his phone as the two declined InVicen payments were attempted by phone. I actually don't know that, Lorree. So what I ask you to do, Lorree, is to produce the evidence that we are 100% sure. You say we know. There's no doubt in your voice here. We know Jay was making payments with his phone, as the two declined InVicen payments were attempted by phone. You might be right, but I don't recall anyone asserting that 100% sure. If in the inquest it was stated that Jay attempted those two payments by phone, then you're right. But here's what doesn't make any sense to me is that very same evening, Brandon says to Jay, get my 2-ton out. Yeah, while you're at it, get my 2-ton out. Now that to me means that Brandon is pretty darn sure that Jay has a card with which to withdraw 2-ton 200 in cash. Are there ATMs, cash dispensers in that part of Tenerife that work again just with the phone? There are, but it's very, very hit or miss. And you will find that some of them, where you can use your phone to make a cash withdrawal from a machine, are linked only to a Spanish bank account. This is what I've read. This is what I've heard. A number of them, first of all, aren't set up yet. And we're going back to 2024, so we're going back, 2 years here. A lot of them in Tenerife are not set up for a use of telephone to make a cash withdrawal. A lot of them that are set up to do that are hit or miss if you don't have a Spanish bank account. So I'm saying I just can't imagine Brandon saying to Jay, get that 2-ton out for me, if Brandon is assuming Jay can only do that with his phone. And once again, if we're talking about this narco underworld, which I think we are, you've got to understand that that world operates to a large extent on cash, or at least as we found out, I think, from Lucy's activity, directly bank account to bank account. That narco underworld isn't based solely on what Lorree is hinting at here, just use by a phone. Not at all. So the way I took it to be, again, unless the inquest made it 100% clear that Jay was making those payments to Invicen or those failed payments by phone, that still doesn't make sense of Brandon to me, that Brandon's saying, get my 2 ton out. We also know, pretty sure, that Rach mentioned something about look out for Brad's bank card. So if Rach said that when she was hunting around for Warren, if she said that, then it makes it clear that Brad at least had a card, bank card. I just cannot imagine that Jay goes trotting off first time abroad without his family for a rave and a substance binge weekend, and his mum, who remembers to make sure he takes his aloe vera gel and put that on when you're sunburned, his mum also says, nah, you don't need cash. You don't even need a card. Go with Lorree's advice. Huh? Our Hampstead honey, our financial expert, says when you're in Tenerife, the phone does everything, all the time, no problem. I just can't imagine our Debs Duncan saying that to Jay. If she did, she's a damn fool. I think Debbie Duncan, having worked abroad, as she said, probably knowing Tenerife a little bit, and knowing Jay, implored him to take cash, card, maybe use your phone. Have all three. And that is why, I believe, when Debbie said about the cash, did she not say, when we went back to Jay's room, we found his cash. He did have money. There it was. So there we go, Lorree. I've got a lot more to go through in your points there, but I really don't see that it makes any sense at all that Jay, without any cash on him, without a bank card on him, is a needle that points towards accident. It isn't in my book. And I really don't believe the way you are grasping and stretching for this. Oh, it's perfectly normal for someone in that situation to be doing everything by phone. No, it isn't. And you would have thought, Lorree, that once Jay's phone is going down to 3%, 2%, 1% battery, and that's his only form of payment, you got to think at some point in all of these conversations with all of his friends, Jay's going to say at some point, my phone's about to die, and my phone is my only means of payment. I am well and truly screwed. Come and get me. But he doesn't. But he doesn't. But I guess, Lorree, that just fits with how accidents happen. Yeah? I'll leave it there. More roasting to come later. Adios, hasta luego. See you next time.